Welcome to the Somatic Coaching Academy podcast with Ani and Brian. Join us as we explore the art and science of trauma-sensitive somatic practices and tools to strengthen your practice as a coach, therapist, or holistic professional. Master the art of motivating even the most challenging clients when you'll understand how to tap into and unlock your client's complete holistic intelligence. If you want to learn the most cutting-edge, research-supported skills for personal and professional mastery, you've come to the right place. Let's get this conversation started.
Hi, and welcome to the Somatic Coaching Academy podcast. This is episode 21. Hi, Ani.
Hi there, Brian.
How are you today?
I'm pretty good.
Doing pretty good?
Yeah.
I'm really excited to chat with you today about our topic, finding your purpose. I know this is something that you have done a lot of work with for yourself, and I'm so proud of the work that you've done around the Soul's Agenda process. That is a kind of a core part of the Somatic Coaching Academy curriculum.
Yeah.
I know that was a bit of a journey for you, so I'm really interested and excited to hear you talk a little bit more about finding your purpose and a little bit about the law of purpose, maybe from a natural law standpoint. So if we can chat about that today a little bit, I think that'd be really great.
Yeah. I think that the purpose work that we do in the Somatic Coaching Academy is that part that brings in the spiritual aspect. Well, there's a few different things that bring in the spiritual aspect of body, mind, spirit. We don't really talk very super overtly about spiritual stuff. At the Academy, we talk about things that are spiritual in nature, like the laws are spiritual in nature, and purpose is spiritual in nature. I think that purpose is the thing that, for me anyway, as I've experienced it and I've watched our students experience not just finding their purpose, but embodying their purpose, living their purpose, feeling what it feels like to really be in purpose. I think it's the thing that brings that sense of spiritual fulfillment that as people, we're always looking for in the external somehow. If we can't tap into it, find it, nourish it, grow it within ourselves internally. And it's that sense of, and the reason I think it really super relates to the spiritual nature is because it's that sense of I'm filled up. I don't have to look at something outside of myself in order to do that. But I am filled up. I know who I am. I think it brings our students a great sense of inner peace, but also internal motivation at the same time somehow.
Yeah. So as you're talking, Ani, like two things kind of popping up for me, which are really interesting. One is that when we're working with complete human intelligence, which is a lot of the work that we do and kind of aspire moving towards understanding intelligence holistically, even the semantics of body, mind, and spirit start to kind of lose their power in some ways, because we recognize that they're actually all the same thing. When we look at it from that complete holistic perspective, there really is no difference between body, mind, or spirit. They're all the same thing. They are all arise from the infinite intelligence all around us. So I think that that's kind of interesting that when we're talking about that, we don't talk about spirit stuff overtly. We're talking about it all the time, but not really directly, because we're talking about complete human intelligence all the time, which encompasses everything. So
Yeah.
I know it gets a little bit murky when we talk about that, but it's interesting how just divisions and compartmentalization just fades the more you live in a place of complete human intelligence.
I think that's the divine paradox, actually. One of the ways that we put the body, mind, and spirit back together is we don't overtly kind of put the body, mind, and spirit in different
different buckets.
boxes. Yeah. Coaches aspire, Brian, they study for years and years to be able to coach the whole human. And I think it's interesting because even programs that talk about coaching the whole human oftentimes don't include body-centered things. But as you're talking about it, it's 100% true. It's not like we do overtly spiritual things at the Somatic Coaching Academy, but because we work with the body, we're working with the mind and the spirit. And the body is the material aspect of the mind and the spirit. And so without working with the body in some capacity, you can't fully work with the mind and the spirit in its fullest capacity, which is, I know why our students say that this feels like the missing piece. They say it all the time. This is the missing piece. They'll say it, when we ask them about how their sensation-based motivation coaching retreat experience went, because we do official like retreat evaluations, and people say it all the time. This was the missing piece that I was looking for. And I think the reason is because of the body. But our topic today is talking about
about finding purpose.
Finding purpose. And here we are talking about body again, because, hey, the body is the vessel with which we live our purpose.
Sure. Well, it's actually interesting. So if we just take that bridge for a second. So when I am traveling around, I'm talking to people on planes and in airports and at conferences and at coffee shops and whatever, the questions usually revolve around kind of like, what do you do in your life? And I believe that's probably a uniquely United States of America kind of thing.
Yeah,
And not all places in the country world do that. But most people connect their purpose with a doing state. Like, am I living my purpose? Am I doing what I'm supposed to do? I think this is a really fascinating kind of difference that we approach it at, because we don't look at it that way.
No.
And what I've kind of discovered is connecting purpose to a doing state, which has to do with your body, brings a lot of misery for people.
Well, so I have my master's degree in occupational therapy, and the whole basis of occupational therapy is doing meaningful activities with people for rehabilitation purposes. And kind of the thought is that we need to be involved in meaningful activities to have purpose. And so I decided to just really shake this up for my master's thesis in college, because I was like, well, hey, there's people who are alive who can't do. So what happens to them? Can they still create meaning and purpose? And so I studied people who had Lou Gehrig's disease, and ALS is the other name for that. And it's such an interesting diagnosis, because a person's body, they start to progressively lose physical function, but their cognitive function, they're kind of like cognition, thinking, mind,
communication,
well,
cognitive place,
exactly,
right,
from a cognitive place is totally online, which is different than other diseases where cognition also declines.
So dementia isn't typically a part of ALS.
Exactly. So they might not be able to, their muscles might not be able to move to communicate, but their thinking mind, to be able to think and to want to express, is fully functional. I always thought of it as a student. I had my favorite teacher in college. She studied ALS and was a part of the ALS community at where I was going to school. So I was especially fascinated with the population because I was fascinated with her, right? And so I remember thinking as a college student about how that just sounded, I was afraid of something like that happening to me, where it was like I was locked up in a body.
Yeah. Yeah. When I worked at Craig Hospital with brain injury, folks who were recovering from brain injuries, oftentimes we work with people that had locked in syndrome, is what it was called, where people had full cognitive capacities, but weren't able to communicate.
Yeah.
And how distressing that must be.
That's what I thought, right? So I really wanted to study this for my master's thesis, and my teacher hooked me up with the community to be able to study people who were living with ALS. And I found, actually, with every person I talked to, was actually astounding to me that each person with ALS, in the different progressions of the symptomology, but especially the people who couldn't move their bodies anymore, but who could still communicate with me, could find purpose. And it kind of threw a wrench in the whole occupational therapy thing for me. I've just gone to school for 5 years on the basis of occupation, or things that we do, our doing creates meaning. And these people were telling me that they could create meaning without doing. I think it really shook me up, because I graduated, and I remember 2 weeks after graduation standing in the clinic, and there were a few reasons why I thought this, Brian, but I thought I'm not in the right place in life. But I think that my studies lent to that kind of dissatisfaction, because I knew there was something more. I didn't know what it was. And now I can see that a big part of it was that purpose really is about who we are. Purpose is a being state, and it doesn't require activities, although activities enhance, right? And can help us to live more fulfilling lives, but it's not a requirement.
Yeah. And activities can certainly be an expression of that
Yes.
being state that we call purpose.
Yep.
So a lot of the teaching and the work we do is around some of Thurman Fleet's work and those sorts of things. And of course, natural law. And there's the idea being, doing, having is kind of a thing a lot of people talk about, right? What do you want to be, do, and have? And the way we think about it from a mindset perspective is that our being state actually is expressed in our doing states. Our bodies, our muscles, our neuromuscular activity is carrying out our being state or our purpose. And then that will result in our having. Like what we have is a result of what we do, and
Hmm.
what we do is a result of who we be.
Yeah.
I guess it's the way we think about it.
Yeah. So that's the being aspect of purpose that not a lot of people talk about. But what we find with our students is 100% of our students can actually have results with finding their purpose and living their purpose when it's conceptualized like that. And that's what we're all about here at the Somatic Coaching Academy, is that everybody gets to get results, not just a fraction
Mhm.
of folks. So the being state is really important. The other part of this, Brian, is that a lot of people conceptualize purpose about a state that, as described, is like basically when I'm happy, when I'm succeeding,
Mhm.
when I'm fulfilled, then I'm on purpose. And the way that we conceptualize it actually goes again with the natural laws and the law of polarity. The fact is, we live in a world of duality, and two sides of the equation are always going to show up because two sides make a whole.
Mhm.
And that's how we live life. And so, one of the things that actually keeps people stuck a lot is when they're doing purpose work, but the purpose work is defining them in some successful state that doesn't define the wholeness of how life shows up. Whereas we define purpose in both, we call it the light aspects, kind of like how we love when life shows up. We also
Mhm.
define it in what we call the polarities, which is the other side of the coin. And the cool thing about that is when we do that, people can see that they're always on purpose. And ancient quotes, and one of my favorites is the Buddha's quote, but
Mhm.
there's lots of people who talk about this from, like, ancient wisdom. The Buddha says that our purpose is to live our purpose. The
Mhm.
Buddha's not like, you're going to live your purpose some of the time. No, our purpose is to be alive. Our
Mhm.
purpose is all of life. And so the way that we conceptualize purpose actually includes both of those things. And again, our students often, all the time, say, this makes my whole life make sense.
Yeah. I would just want to kind of earmark something just for a moment too around the law of purpose, because some people come to us with this concern that I don't have a purpose. And from a natural law perspective, everything that's manifest has a purpose. Everything that is manifest, everything that has, everything in the universe has a purpose. I guess even things that are unmanifest actually have a purpose too. But just to make it maybe easier for us to cognitively conceptualize, if we look around ourselves in nature, everything that we can perceive in nature has a purpose. Every plant, every tree, every bug, every bee, everything, water, rocks, everything has a purpose. Otherwise, it wouldn't be here, right? Mother Nature doesn't keep anything around that she's not using, or that doesn't have a purpose, doesn't add to the whole or fulfill something. And so, if we're here in incarnate form as humans, we must also have a purpose. Now, we can also kind of extend that to say, if we are not in incarnate form, we have a purpose also. But let's just for the moment say, right now, right here we are,
Yeah, let's not have
we
that
have
conversation
physical
today.
bodies. So let's just kind of nut it down to that just for a second. Say, if you're here, you must have a purpose. You must have a purpose because you're here. And so it's not about asking yourself whether or not you have a purpose. It's finding your purpose then and being able to express it through a being state. So we find it as a state of being. And what I love about your saying is that state of being isn't always happy and
It's
glowing and
all
feeling great.
things.
It's all
We're
things.
humans. we have emotions. I think that's one of the things, now here goes the soapbox. I think that's one of the things we're trying to do when we want to find our purpose is escape our humanness.
Mm-hmm.
When in reality, the more that we fully embrace our humanness, and by the way, let me just say it, when I'm saying humanness, I mean, a big part of what I'm talking about is emotions. People don't want to feel their emotions. They're painful. We don't want to be around other people's emotions. And it's a messy part of being human.
Mm-hmm.
And the Soul's Agenda purpose work that we do at the Somatic Coaching Academy really does help people to embrace all aspects of the human experience, including the emotions, taking out the idea that some are good and some are bad, to really help us to live our lives in a place where uh, we are always on purpose, and everything that happens in our life is actually serving us towards our greater evolution and growth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm working on kind of letting go of all shame in my life.
Oh,
so,
that's amazing.
Yeah. So I'm going to give a shameless plug
Okay.
for you for your book, Find Your Soul's Agenda.
Wait a minute, well, that might have, then I might feel shame.
But yeah, but
It's a good thing I'm
being shameless. So
Okay.
I'm shamelessly plugging your book,
Okay.
Find Your Soul's Agenda. And you talk about so many amazing things in there. One is just what you've mentioned about purpose has a polarity. So there's both sides to our purpose. Our purpose isn't always just clean. There's lots involved with it. Our purpose can be rather complex. However, there's a relatively simple way to identify the purpose, the being state, to help us typically move in the direction of the life that we want to move. So as conscious humans moving forward in life, growth-oriented people, most growth-oriented people I meet want to have a more enriched life, have better relationships, be able to communicate more clearly, let go of things like guilt and shame, and being able to live fully in their lives, to be able to take responsibility for their lives, right? That's a really growth-oriented dynamics. And finding that being state and being able to express that being state is a critical part of that.
Mm-hmm.
So can you give us kind of some inside scoop here a little bit, just between us and the listeners, some tips on how do we go about finding our purpose? What are key elements of that?
Well, gosh, I mean, the Find Your Soul's Agenda process does it so succinctly. So, one of the things is to look back at our past memories and to look at what the best memories are. And we have, as a part of every year when we teach our students how to do purpose work with others, they, give us a little banter about the exact words that we're using when we tell them, how to do the process. And the exact words are really important. We vetted them. They're very important. So we're looking at the best memories that you've experienced. And sometimes people say, well, what do you mean by the best? Well, what does the best mean to you? Because some people will bring aspects of their best memories that have been also painful. And that's it right there. That's it right there. That our most purposeful moments can be, like you said, kind of like complicated and have a lot of different components to it. It doesn't have to be complicated to describe so that we can know, what it is. But they can be complex because our human experience it's like a tapestry, which is wonderful. So one thing is, when we look back with memory recapitulation, it helps us to identify our purpose has been operational since the moment we were born. It helps us to identify those moments where we call it the acorn. The purpose is like, we can identify moments of the acorn. So that's definitely one of the things. And we've been talking about the being state. When a person does identify their being state, Brian, I think that one of the ways that we can really help to further clarify our purpose and then live on purpose more and more and more to a greater degree with greater clarity and confidence and fulfillment is to continue to make decisions based on that purpose.
Yes.
Because the fact is, we're going to have so many moments in our life where we feel something, we know we want to take advantage, for example, of an opportunity, but we don't see the resources right there. And the idea is not how I recently heard this, and I'm going to borrow it. I don't remember where I heard it from. The idea is we want to make a decision. It's not where are the resources, it's how can I be resourceful.
Mm-hmm.
And in order for us to really be resourceful, we need to know that that feeling, that soul's agenda, that purpose feeling is leading us to more life, and the resources will be there for us when we step in further and further to our purpose. That's the law. It's the way it must be. What a lot of people do is they cut themselves off from those decisions because they don't know the laws, they don't trust the laws, and they don't trust their purpose and know their purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're continually stuck in these patterns of less fulfillment, less than fulfilled,
Mm-hmm.
less abundant, or less, than they really want. And the opportunities are there, but we have to continue to make decisions that are in alignment with our purpose to keep fostering that and growing that acorn.
Yeah. So as I'm listening to you talk, Ani, it's like, what's fascinating to me is I'm hearing like 4 components of a purpose. And so one you said was it feels a certain way, right? We're also making decisions based on it, which helps me think about, or makes me think about thinking. Like I'm thinking, making decisions.
Sure.
You said the words are really important that we're
Yeah.
using when we're taking someone through the Find Your Soul's Agenda process.
They're
Like the
so
words
important.
are critically important. And we started off this whole conversation with comparing your purpose to being a being as compared to a doing, which is an action state. So I just heard sensations, thoughts, words, and actions. That's a pattern, right? That's what we call a somatic pattern. And so our soul's agenda, our purpose is actually also a pattern because everything is patterns. So it sounds to me like when you really are living in your soul's agenda and you know what your soul's agenda is, you're experiencing very clear a sensory connection to your being state. There are thoughts associated, a certain way of thinking that's associated with your soul's agenda being state.
Yeah.
There's certain words that are associated with the soul's agenda being state. And then from all of that will flow actions that are the doing that create the having in your life.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, we're either living, it's funny, actually, we're living our purpose anyway. You might not know it. So you either know it or you don't know it. But there's a pattern associated with I'm living my purpose, but I don't know I'm living my purpose. And it has sensations probably of contraction, stress, anxiety, those kinds of things, shame and guilt. It's going to have thoughts of I can't or I don't know, self-doubt, indecision, those kinds of things. Words we speak aren't going to be super empowered because those are the place we're coming from. And our actions are probably going to be, I was going to say, kind of like different, like sporadic was the word that's coming to what's the word I'm looking for when things kind of
Spontaneous?
No, when they're not really organized. But the fact is, when
Chaotic?
we really chaotic, thank you. When we look at our pattern of us not living our purpose, the actions probably feel chaotic, but they're actually like we're doing the same things all the time and expecting a different result, but we're not getting it because we're not coming from a place of purpose. And you're absolutely right. The purpose is a pattern and it has identifiable parts to it so that we can see what the parts are. And that way we can really live it, to our best.
Yeah, as we're having this conversation, I've often been accused of like a rainy day, like throwing a bucket of water on someone on a sunny day. I think the
party pooper.
Yeah, I'm kind of a party pooper because like the whole idea of purpose, I think feels really magical, right? It can feel really magical and like universalistic and like
magical.
Really wonderful. And I just was like, it's a pattern, people.
Listen,
it's got 4 parts.
Yeah, it's very
sensations,
simple.
thoughts, and it's like, well, you just ruined that for me. You just took all the, but I like that because it turns that magic into some practicality, right? It makes us say, oh wait, I can grasp that. I can do something with it. And I can actually now live my purpose in a way that makes my life feel magical.
Well, that's the divine paradox too, though, because it's very, very simple and it's very, very magical. Whose magical stuff has to be super complicated? Because the people I know who live like super complicated kinds of lives, their lives don't feel magical. They feel stressful.
Stressful and chaotic and dramatic and upheaval and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Listen, purpose is really simple. It really is. And it's right there in front of you. You're living it right now. You might not know you're living it. It's one of the things that really It warms my heart so much. So many things in our programs warm our hearts. When people get to the sensation-based motivation coaching program, finding your purpose is one of the first things that we do with
Mhm.
people. One of the reasons is because we really deeply want to know our students and have them work in the whole curriculum from that place. We also know that our students can then go out and help other people to find their purposes really quickly. And so, they're starting this program, and some of our students really do want to and kind of need to go ahead and actualize some of the things so they can start to get their return on investment, quickly. And it's
Mhm.
a really great, easy, wonderful way for our students to do it. I love watching our students find their purpose. I love watching our students help other people find their purpose. And I love that their enthusiasm for purpose work doesn't retire itself upon graduation.
Mm.
We get notes years
Yes,
after
yes.
graduation, and people are still just as excited as like the day one for this simple
Mm.
process, this practical, simple, magical process of helping somebody find and live into their
Mhm.
purpose. And it just keeps going for years and years and years.
Yeah. And if I can just make a confession right here, right? So
Okay.
I was the first person that you did this process with,
Well,
right?
I don't remember
I
that.
remember it distinctly,
Huh.
right? And it happened in our bathroom. Where you were actually
Was I like assaulting you in the
you were
bathroom?
taking a bath,
Uh,
and you had all your papers like all around the tub. I don't know how you don't get your papers wet, but you're all around the tub. And you say, Brian, can you come in here for a minute? Can I try something with you? And I'm like, sure. So I come in and I sit down on the toilet next to you in the
uh-huh.
bathtub, and you walk me through the process
Uh-huh.
and it came up with my purpose state. And even at the time, I'm like, yeah, whatever. It's like hairy fairy, like I can't blah blah blah, and I can't shake the thing. Like even this many years later, it's like it follows me around. It's like my little pet dog, and it's always next to me all the time. My purpose state, my purpose word, my purpose statement, and every time I think, oh, that's isn't. It's like it's still there, and it's so enriched my life so much over the past decade
Yeah.
that where I first went through your process with this. And it really is so wonderful to see so many other people go through the process. And even for kind of non-believers like myself
Yeah.
to go through
Skeptics.
skeptics to go through the process like myself and then say, oh my God, that is so right.
It still works on
And
skeptics.
to have to let it seep in, it's like water sleeping into really hard ground. It eventually gets in there, and it really can nourish some very deep places
Mhm.
within us. So
Without
I'm a converted skeptic.
nice.
It's really changed my life profoundly,
Yeah,
and I'm really grateful for that.
thank you. You're right. Some people do just jump in with 2 feet and they're super excited about the process, and some people are like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And we still hear
Yeah.
back from them years later that like you said, the process has kind of seeped in and
Mhm.
really nourished their lives. Yeah, you can't fight with truth, huh, Brian?
Can't fight with the truth. Can't
Yeah.
fight with the truth.
Yeah.
Any final words on finding your purpose today before we close out this episode?
Well, I think I just want to inspire listeners to know that everybody has a purpose. Like you said, you're already on purpose. You can't shake it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's not that it's not there. It's always there with you. You're always on purpose. You can't screw it up. However, you can be unaware of it. So we highly encourage you. One of the best ways to live your purpose is actually not just to find your purpose. It's to help other people find theirs. So
Wonderful.
yeah.
Thanks, Ani. Thanks for sharing with us today.
Yeah, it was so fun. This is one of my favorite topics. Thanks, Brian.
I love
And we'll look forward to seeing you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for listening to this episode. We hope that this conversation will help you improve your practice and change the way you think about your work, your clients, and yourself. Continue your exploration of trauma-sensitive somatic coaching by listening to more podcast episodes at somaticcoachingacademy.com. You could be the trusted guide that people turn to help them with their most challenging situations and to reach their most precious goals. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.